we developed this talk last semester with one of the other advisors last semester, Christine McCourt, and the two of us together developed it. She's not advising this semester. I've updated it, changed a few things, but the basic goal is to help you know what you need to know to communicate well when you're contacting graduate schools, and especially when you're contacting professors. And I think a lot of it is because the cultures are different. You know, the way we do things here is probably not exactly the way you do things there. And you know, you may not know that because you're new here. So let me tell you what we're going to talk about. So first we're going to talk about who makes admissions decisions. That's an important question because that helps you know whom to contact or not contact, all right? And so whom should you contact and for which kinds of questions, right? And reasons to contact or not contact professors. So sometimes maybe you shouldn't contact a professor. When and how to contact professors. The question of visiting a university. And finally, the last thing is understanding emails that you receive after you contact people. So admissions decisions are not made by one person. So sometimes people are looking for the right person to talk to about them. But there is no right person because it's a group of people. And it's a committee of, you know, a committee means probably more than two. At least three, maybe 4, 5, 6, 7, a bunch of people. And at a lot of universities, there are two committees, one in the graduate admissions office and one in the department, because at a lot of universities, you're accepted 2 times. First, the university has to accept you, and then the department has to accept you. So that can be 2 different committees. And by a committee, again, it's just a group of people. So keep that in mind. If you decide, I'm going to go to this university and talk to somebody, it's not clear who you should talk to, right? Okay, also, you have to remember that admissions decisions are not made immediately. You may have to wait several months for an answer. So I've had students who said, okay, I applied everything 2 days ago and I haven't heard anything. What should I do now? Right? Do nothing, right? The only thing you want to do after you apply, the only kind of contact you need is to double check to make sure you have submitted everything. So you can contact the admissions office and say, okay, I think I have submitted everything. Is anything missing? That's all you should do. Don't say, when will you tell me? Don't ask them, will I get admitted? Okay, just ask, if you ask anything, do you have all my materials? Because you don't want to make them crazy, right? Because if you make them crazy, they don't like you as much. Okay, so for me, I would say there are 3 basic groups. The graduate admissions office at a university, your department and your major, and professors that you might work with. So the graduate admissions office. So most of the time, you should email the graduate admissions office. Most questions are just, if you're just getting information, graduate admissions. So how to apply, what the admission requirements are, or whether your application is complete. You don't need to contact any professors. You don't need any special person, just the graduate admissions office. And the person answering is going to be maybe a full-time employee, maybe a student worker. You don't know who's going to answer. So there's no special person at the graduate admissions office you need to contact. And you know, a couple of years ago, I used to tell students, don't ask them questions. You can find it on the website. But now I have discovered, no, that's not true. The websites are crazy. You know, it's very hard sometimes to find information on the website. So if you look and you cannot find the deadline or the IELTS TOEFL requirement or something, yeah, go ahead and send them an email. And you don't have to say anything about yourself. Your email should be short and simple. You don't need to say who you are. But try not to make the email horrible, right? Try to write an email that's a pretty good email with pretty good English, all right? I've seen students write these, come on anywhere that you can see easily is fine. I've seen students write these huge, long emails to graduate admissions offices all about themselves and their scholarship and their plans. Forget all that. Just ask the question. I do that a lot for all of you guys. Just send quick emails. So that's the graduate admissions office. And that's your basic source of information. One thing I would say is, don't email them and say, how do I apply? First, go to their website. See what you can find out, okay? So this is the kind of thing that I might write. Dear graduate admissions, can you tell me the application deadline for the MS in biology for spring 2016? Thank you, Mary Lou Price. That's it, and that usually produces a pretty quick answer. To your department. So to contact your department, it should be about something related to the department, right? So questions about the specific program you have, questions about admission requirements by the department, because as a lot of you know, often the department has some admission requirements that the university, the general university, doesn't have. And usually the web page will tell you, please check your department for additional requirements, right? So that's important to know. So anything related to the department, contact your department. I would say you can make this just like the email to the admissions office. Simple, simple, simple. Or you can add a sentence or two about yourself, because the department is a little bit closer to your ultimate target, which is the professor, right? And the department, people in the department will form an impression about you based on the email you send. If you send a polite email that's pretty well written, since it's to the department, you don't know who's going to see it, but somebody might see it and form an impression of you, and that might be good or bad. So I would say be a little more careful emailing the department. Okay, and so here's an example from a student. Dear sir or madam. It's not from a student, I made it up. And you can see that because I've got Turkey and a Saudi name, sorry. I'm a prospective MBA student from Turkey here in the US on a full scholarship from the Turkish government. Could you tell me whether the thesis for the MBA program is required? That part was actually from a real email. So this is a specific question about the department and the program. And do you know prospective, like future student? When you're on websites, anytime you see prospective student, that's you, right? So I made this one a little fancier. And by the way, we're going to send this out to all the sponsored students after tomorrow or sometime. So if you feel free to take pictures, or if you don't want to. And when we send it, you can just copy and paste and send your own question. So any questions so far? Comments? All right, let's move on. Okay, so here's the big one, professors. All right, so should you contact professors? So my answer, and probably a lot of teachers' answers, the answer is it depends. Okay, so if you make a positive impression on the professor, it can help you. If you make a negative impression on the professor, it can hurt you. Right? So deciding to contact a professor is a big deal. And some professors say, yes, I want you to contact me. Other professors say, I hate it when students email me that I don't know. I will never respond. So the reaction of professors really depends on the professor. But let's talk about how to make a positive impression. Okay, so first of all, Good reasons to contact professors. To ask for an appointment, to express your interest in the professor's research, to ask a professor if he or she is taking new graduate students, or actually all three, right? This would be a good model for all three. So you're trying to make a connection with the professor based on your common research interests. And so those kinds of contacts are wonderful if you do them nicely and carefully, and we'll talk about that. Okay, bad reasons to contact professors. Okay, so to find out admissions requirements, okay, I would say don't ask a professor that. They're so busy, they have a million things to do. They're just going to say, here's the email for the admissions office, if they say anything. So it's not a good use of their time, and they won't appreciate it. And they probably won't answer, unless you are really amazing and they're excited to hear from you. Hey, okay. Okay, to find out general information about the program, you can find that information out another way. You can through the department's website, through emailing the department, through the university's website. So, you know, don't ask the professor, oh, I'm interested in studying biology. Could you tell me more about your master's program? No, you know, he or she doesn't want to do that. Okay, to ask if you will be accepted. Okay, there are a lot of rumors around. Students have told me, oh, yes, my friend said it's better to email the professor. You tell them everything about yourself and say, can I get accepted? Okay, that is a very weird strategy in this country. We don't do it that way. So if you decide you want to do that, I hope that you have really, really good GPA and really, really good scores and really, really good background and make them very excited about you. Because otherwise, they're just going to say, go to the admissions of apply. Yeah, don't bother me, just apply. Okay? So, in general, to ask if you will be accepted is not a good question to ask of anybody, especially not a professor. And I think maybe in some other cultures, it's the regular way you do it, but it's not the regular way here, all right? So let's talk more about making a positive impression on the professor. Have a good reason for contacting the professor, and we talked about those. You want to do research in that area, maybe you want to work with him or her. Really big thing, do research about the professor ahead of time. Really, you really want to know everything you can about the professor. And if this is somebody you want to work with in graduate school, then really take the time. One thing you want to think about is find out what he or she has been working on recently. Sometimes there'll be like, it's not hard to find professors on the web pages of the departments. You know, somewhere usually there's a link that says faculty. And if you can't find it, what I've been doing a lot lately is on the main homepage of the university, there's a little search thing. So I'll just search faculty and can find it that way. But just about every university posts information about their faculty. So, but they may list several research interests. You want to make sure that you find out what they've been working on recently. Because sometimes maybe you say, oh, I want to work on such and such, but he hasn't worked on that in 10 years. So you want to find out recent articles. What is that professor interested in now? And if possible, read a recent article by the professor. Okay, those articles are really hard to read. I know that. But if you can get a general idea of the topic so that you know what this professor is doing, that can really help you. Send a well-written email. We're going to talk about the emails. And have the email checked by a native English speaker. I mean, this is the time when you want a super good email. And if your email is not so good, but you have a lot of good qualifications, you know, professors are used to receiving emails from international students all the time. But having a nice email gives you a little edge, right? Makes you seem a little more professional and serious. Oh, wait, that's not the way I wanted to go. Okay. Okay, so what do you say in an email to a professor? You know, and that's a hard question. You want to contact your professor, but what are you going to say? So here are a few suggestions, and then we're going to look at a couple of samples. Say something about yourself that might make the professor interested in you. So what do you think, what would be something you might say? What would make a professor interested in you? Yeah, fully paid scholarship is always good. Although probably the professor doesn't care about that as much as the university, right? The university cares about that because of the money. The professor likes that because then he or she doesn't have to give you funding. If you already have your own funding, that gives you more opportunities for research. Yeah. Well, I would say in your first, he said scores. I would say in your first contact, don't say anything about scores unless they're really, really good, right? If your scores are really good, then that means, oh, okay, we can probably accept this person. But if your scores are not really good, I would say don't mention them yet. Yeah. But what else? Experience. Something about your experience would be good. If you have some good experience, right? What else? There's a big thing you haven't said yet. What? Wait, I'm sorry.
Interesting.
Your interests, your research interests. What do you want to do? What are you interested in? That's the big thing, okay? Because that's where they decide if you have a similar interest, if you are a match, right? If you are not a match, well, you shouldn't be connecting with that professor, right? But that's a big thing, okay? So something to make them interested in you, but don't make it long. Don't tell them everything about you, because you can attach your CV for everything about you. Show the professor that you're familiar with his or her recent research interests, and one of our examples shows you that. Tell the professor what you want. That is a huge problem with a lot of emails that I've seen. You know, my name is blah, 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 I'm blah, 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 my interest is blah, 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 I've read your article, blah, 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 sincerely, you know. What do you want? You know, you have to tell them what you want. Do you want an appointment? Do you want to work with him or her in graduate school? What do you want? Right? So be sure you say that, because otherwise they'll look at the email and go, that's nice, delete, you know. So yeah, tell them what you want. And then I think it's good to mention that you're attaching your CV, and then attach it. My failing, right? I forget to attach things. Okay. Other comments, questions? Everybody awake? Yeah. Yeah.
SOP, is it necessary to send?
Yeah, about sending your SOP. If it's done and it's pretty, if it's good and it's done, I think you can attach it because, you know, they can look at it if they want. Yeah. If it's not done, then don't worry about it. Yeah. If you think you have something, you know, a good, pretty good SOP, then I would go ahead and attach it. The main thing is it's there if they want to pursue more. Anything else? Yeah.
Which one is important, graduate admission or professor or department? Which one the major choice for me is to contact them?
So which one is more important to contact, graduate admissions, professor, or department? Well, it kind of goes back to the beginning. Depends on what you want. Do you want information about the program? Do you want to make a contact with a professor? What do you want? Probably you will contact all of them. What?
For the admissions to be accepted.
Yeah. To be accepted, it's hard to say. I mean, the main reason people make a contact is that they hope that that contact, the professor will then help them get accepted. And that's true. So if you make a contact with a professor and he or she is interested in you, and you start to email, then probably at that point the professor will start asking, well, what are your scores, you know, and when are you applying, and then you say, you know, oh, well, I have a 5 on IELTS and I haven't taken the GRE. And they go, okay, well, contact me in a few months when you have a 6 and a GRE score, and we'll talk, right? So but if they're interested in you, if you have something special to offer, then they can help you get accepted because they want graduate students too. I mean, they're looking for good graduate students too. So just like you're looking for good professors. So, yeah, yeah.
When you accept the CV and something of you to international student, did university and department give it to professor and professor chat and show it some people on?
So the application process probably, it varies from university to university. I don't think the international office plays a big role. At UT, we have a combination, graduate admissions and graduate and international admissions office. But a lot of places, the international office provides services, but they're not really related to admissions. So I think in general, the international office doesn't play a huge role. But let's just talk about graduate admissions. So yeah, so a lot of times what happens is everything, well, they'll tell you what they want. A lot of them want you to send everything to the graduate admissions office, and then they will send everything to the department. But you have to read what they say, because some universities say, please send everything to the department. So just that's where your reading skills come in. What do they say?
And if we, when they contact with the professor, professor interested in you, the professor has the permit accept you to come to university.
Does the professor have to accept you to come to the university?
Yeah.
Say, well, the department has to accept you. So for the department to accept you, they have to know that some professor is willing to work with you. But a lot of times it's very easy, because if this is your interest and there are some professors in that interest, they'll accept you. Say that again, what?
Professor talk with the department.
So the professor is part of the department. Yeah. So usually there's this committee, and the committee has professors on it. And if a professor you're interested in is not on it, they will probably give their feedback on some students. I mean, the process, they try to get as many people involved in the decisions as possible. So I would say a lot of the time, everything goes to the admissions office, and then there's not a lot of sending involved because it's all online, right? So really, everybody can access everything once you've applied. But yeah, so I think most of the time the graduate admissions office is the key place. Yeah, and sometimes maybe there's 2 whole completely separate admission processes. Again, it's just so weird that there's no universal system, that it depends on the university. Musa, did you get your question answered? Yeah, okay. Oh. Just a few more email tips. These are just little things at the top. Format the email correctly. Make it look like emails you've received. I mean, that's always a good thing when you're sending a professional email out. I mean, look at how native speakers do it, so that you do it kind of the same way. Here's a huge, huge thing. Use the correct title. Okay, this is for professors. Doctor plus family name. Doctor plus last name. Okay, don't use the first name. So my name is Mary Lou Price, and I have a PhD. So my title would be Dr. Price. Okay, not Dr. Mary Lou. Okay, or not Mary Lou, or not Price. I mean, I've seen students write letters like Dear Price. Okay, you want Dr. Price. Two professors, right? I don't know, sign your full name. That's more polite. I don't know about include your phone number. People say that. Yeah, I can't imagine a professor would call you, but you never know. And I'm re-saying this again, have a native speaker correct any English mistakes. Yeah, I think that's a really important thing to do. And if you don't have time to do that, that's okay, but if you do, it's even better. And sponsored students have somebody who can do that for you. Besides your teachers who probably do a lot of things for you every day. Okay, here's another question that we get a lot. When should you contact the professor? I don't know if there's a right time. Some people recommend contacting their professor before you apply. Some people recommend waiting until after you apply. I don't know. It probably depends on the program and the professor. Like one program that one of my students was applying to recently, part of their admissions process was you must contact a professor and get that professor to agree to work with you. So that was a requirement for them before you could even apply. But I don't think most universities are like that. The one thing I would say is, don't forget that your goal is to make a positive impression. If you contact a professor while your scores are still low and you can't communicate well, that might be too soon, right? But it all depends on your needs. I mean, if your sponsor says, you know, you're starting graduate school in July, find a professor, well, then you do it, right? Ultimately, your sponsor's the boss, as you know. Okay, so this part is about a face-to-face appointment, a one-on-one appointment. And should you ask for an appointment? Maybe, is my answer. If you ask for an appointment with a professor, use the meeting to make a positive impression. It's the same thing with the emails. Be familiar with his or her research, be ready to talk about your own interests, make the appointment ahead of time, at a time that's convenient for the professor. Do not ask about your chances for acceptance. You notice I'm repeating a few things. So I think, you know, if you are well prepared, a one-on-one appointment is usually a good thing. Okay. Okay, so can you read this? I'm going to read it to you anyway. So here's a sample letter. Dear Dr. Smith, I'm a counselor from Taiwan and I'm currently preparing to apply for a PhD in counseling psychology. I have several years of counseling experience and I've read a number of your articles on parent-child relationships. I was especially interested in, supposed to be in, look, I didn't get a native speaker to check it. If your native speaker makes a mistake, what can we do? Interested in your 2014 article about the relationship between parental involvement and obesity. I'm very interested in this research area and would like to discuss the possibility of doing my graduate studies with you. I've attached my CV to provide you with more information about my work experience and interests. Would it be possible to meet with you? I'm currently in Austin and I'm available to meet with you at your convenience. At your convenience is a really nice phrase. Don't say, oh, I have classes, blah, 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 I'm available between 12 and 2 on Monday and Wednesday, Friday. Don't say that. Just, if a professor is willing to meet with you, do it, okay? That's like the most important appointment you can have, in my opinion. Even if you're my student, I would say that. If you have to miss class for a professor. Of course, usually the professors are very flexible too. If a professor answers, they'll say, oh, well, here are my office hours, does that work for you? So they're very flexible too. I look forward to hearing from you, best regards, and then your name. So I don't know how this looks compared to other emails you may have seen or sent. Any comments about this? Anything strange or surprising? Yeah? Yeah. Yeah, best regards.
Say yours sincerely.
Well, you know, yours sincerely is nice. It's very formal. It's a little bit old-fashioned, I think. You know, I'm old-fashioned, because I'm old, and I used that for years in my emails. And even I finally gave up sincerely yours and use best regards now. So, yeah. But it doesn't really matter so much. The point is you're trying to be polite. Respectfully yours. I mean, there's probably, 10 phrases you could use that would be polite and nice. Okay. Here's another one. This is sort of funny because we kind of edited this, but it's to a real professor whose name is Dr. Belch. Do you know what that means? If you have gas and you like burp, but really loudly, that's belch. So I feel so bad for this professor. Dear Dr. Belch. So this is very similar. I'm a prospective MBA student from Turkey. I hold a full scholarship. I earned my bachelor's degree. I'm planning to apply for the fall. So I'm very interested in your research field. I read your book, Advertising and Promotion in Integrated Marketing Communications Perspective, and I referred to it in my thesis. In my future research, I'm planning to combine consumer behavior. And then this person in the end asks about, can I do research with you and can I have an appointment? So that's another one. Comments? Okay, so you're sending out a lot of emails to a lot of people, and then you start to get answers, right? And that's another challenge because sometimes you don't know what they mean. So I really encourage you to show your teacher or a very advanced student or me or Esterline, the other advisor, answers you get. Because, you get words, but you don't necessarily know the intent behind the words. Sometimes you don't know culturally what this person is trying to say. So sometimes you just don't understand the English, right? But also sometimes you're not sure, is this an encouraging email or is he telling me to go away? So really show it to one of your teachers, show it to somebody who can give you a good idea of what they're actually saying in the email. Okay? So I was working with somebody recently who understood an email to mean that he or she cannot apply. And that's not what the email said. The email said something like, you cannot submit your application in this way. It didn't say you cannot apply. So that student was not going to apply. So yeah, you have to read really carefully and get some help. And don't be shy about getting help, especially, like for me and Esterline, you can send us the email and say, what does this say? And we'll email back and just give you a quick answer. Sometimes we don't understand either, but usually we do. Okay, telephone. Nobody likes to use the phone if they can email, right? But sometimes it's just easier to pick up the phone and call, especially if you think you will understand what they say. But just prepare and practice your questions ahead of time. If something's a really complicated situation, sometimes a phone call will help. Also, if it's really, really complicated, ask your advisor or a teacher to help you, because I've seen some very strange situations, and responses students get from somebody, and really neither of us knows what they're talking about. So sometimes I make the call and they go, oh, that's what you meant. Okay, I just want to reiterate, this is kind of related to what I said earlier. In some cultures, personal visits to a university are expected. So I've had a lot of students say, okay, I'm ready to apply. When should I go to the university? You don't have to go to the university. It's all online, right? So if you're applying to somewhere in Oregon, they don't expect you to come out there unless they invite you to come out for an interview, and that's a really cool thing, but that's not the usual thing. So in the US, personal visits are not expected. The applications are handled online, not through a face-to-face meeting. But, however, it still can be really useful. Visiting a university can give you a better idea of whether you want to study there. And you'll get to visit the department and see what it's like. And maybe you want to meet someone specific, not just a professor, there are other people you could meet with. But if you want to do that, make sure you arrange it ahead of time. I mean, you don't want to just show up and say, hey, can I see blah, blah, blah? You know, you want to set it up because maybe blah, blah, blah is out of town. Okay, so here are some titles that maybe you think aren't important, but are. So, some useful departmental contacts. The receptionist. Okay, this is good advice for anybody in any situation. You know, be nice to the receptionist. The receptionist can help you a lot. I mean, you know, you've been here. You've been to Rahima, you've been to Priscilla, a lot of you, and they can be very, very helpful. And you should be nice to them always, because they can also be unhelpful. I mean, you know, a lot of receptionists really want to help you, and unless you are rude to them because you think they're not important. Okay? So treat the receptionists as important, because they are. Treat them as equals, not as, don't treat them as some inferior being, right? Treat them as the equals that they are. And if you send an email to a department, it may be the receptionist who answers. Or when I say reception, that's just that any administrative assistant, any administrative person, always treat everybody nicely by email. The graduate admissions coordinator, so this title we use a lot at UT. It's usually not a professor. It's usually, at UT, it's a full-time employee who helps with the admissions process in the department. And they are very good sources of information, and I think a lot of students with questions, if they want to talk to somebody one-on-one, they go to the department and meet with the graduate admissions coordinator. So that's different from the graduate advisor. The graduate advisor is usually a professor, and the graduate advisor works with all graduate students, but often has a role with applications. So all of these people can be helpful in addition to a professor you want to work with. So if you go on a personal visit to a university, you know, try to set up meetings ahead of time. Don't use the visit to find out if you can get accepted. One other teacher told me, allow a lot of time to find buildings and offices, because she just went to some interviews for undergraduate school with her son, and they kept getting lost and they were late to their appointments. So just a little practical tip, if you have an appointment somewhere, don't be late. Do a little research. Okay, so how can I help? How can Esterline help? We can help you write emails, we can read emails, we can give general advice. You know, a lot of times people have all kinds of weird situations. I mean, no two of you have exactly the same situation. And just ask us, what do you think? And your teachers, any of your teachers too, can give you opinions and advice. And remember, one of our first jobs is to help you with CVs, resumes, and statements of purpose. So don't forget that part too. A lot of you have contacted me or Esterline already, and that's great. And then you still have the rest of the semester to do that some more. And that's it. You know who we are. I think you have emails galore, many emails from us. But there are emails again. Any questions, any general questions? Because we're going to stop, but then you can ask me one-on-one questions. Anything else? Okay, thank you for coming.